everybody, welcome back to K&K Crochet. I'm KK.
I'm Kristen.
And today we're going to talk about amigurumi tips. So we've done a C2C tips, and now we're going to do an amigurumi tip. This started for me wanting to make this video because of all the people that I saw when we were doing the Somebody for Miss C who said that they couldn't make amigurumi. And I've been there. Many years ago, the only thing I made was hats and scarves, and then I went on to make some blankets and some baby stuff, and then I decided one day to try amigurumi. I was afraid I couldn't do it. It looked too intricate. It looked like I didn't know how to make those shapes and forms. But here's a little tip about amigurumi if you didn't know. If you know how to do a slip stitch, a single crochet decrease, you pretty much got it down. I mean, there are some that may have some other intricate stitches and things, but you can really, for a basic amigurumi, you can do the magic circle, or you can chain and put so many stitches in your chain. And then from there, it is a basic single crochet increase. And it's the same usually for most of them. There are some differences, and I'm just talking about a basic amigurumi. Most people who do amigurumis will tell you that it will start with 6 single crochet in a magic ring, or 6 single crochet in a loop, or whatever, however you do your beginning of, something that's circular, like a hat. However you start a hat would be how you start an amigurumi. So most people will tell you a basic one is 6 single crochet, then you will increase 12 stitches, 2 in each of the 6, and continue on until it's as big as you want it, and then you decrease back down the other direction, and that's the head. And it can be the body as well, and it can be many types of amigurumi that way. Most patterns you find when you start to do amigurumi, you're going to find that there's a lot of repetition. Now, if they are super intricate in the shaping, then yes, you're going to see some different things. But most likely it's single crochet, increases, decreases, slip stitch. That's it. If you can do that, and you can use a stitch marker, you got it. I mean, I'm talking basic. Yes, there are crazy out there, off the wall, exceptions for everything we do, right? Just like there are exceptions for blankets, there are exceptions for hats, there are exceptions for scarves. They're different, right? But to start with a basic, you can do it. Single crochet, slip stitch, single crochet increase, single crochet decrease. A single crochet increase is nothing more than 2 single crochets in 1 stitch. A single crochet decrease is just going through both stitches and making 1 single crochet out of the 2. It's good. So you can do it. Kristen, what did you think about amigurumi when you started?
I think it was a lot easier. You could it's easier than doing other things, like, to start out with, because you can start with, like, little baby crochet amigurumis. Like, I've heard some people say start with granny squares and everything, but I think amigurumi is a lot easier to start out with when you're just learning.
Okay. So we did a poll or a question on our Facebook group. So first of all, I'm going to go through and talk about some of those questions and things that I asked. What keeps you from doing, or what kept you, not what keeps you, what kept you from doing amigurumi to begin with, or what do you still, what still makes you not want to do it? Like for me, bobble stitches in an amigurumi make me want to not do it. But I have persevered and done several that had them in it. So I won't give names, I'll just talk about what some of the things they said. Making the eyes, and when you didn't want to use safety eyes, because safety eyes, we all know, are not always safe. There are lots of different crocheted patterns for eyes that you can make, and lots of different tutorials for stitched on eyes as well. And Craftably Ever After, Cassandra, I think it is, she has a new tutorial for embroidered eyes, and I'll try to remember to put that in the description box down below. Joe's Web has a tutorial for eyes, and they are crocheted eyes that you would sew on. And then what's the other one? Old Soul Crochet, she has, and then some of her free patterns on YouTube, crochet tutorials for how to do eyes that are puffy eyes that you then sew stitch on. And they turn out really nice too. So I'll try to remember to put all those down below. Those are some of the options that I've used to keep from using the safety eyes. You can also do a French knot. I can't do a French knot, can you?
Never tried it.
And you can just stitch over an embroidery. However you want to do it. I've seen Cheryl at Cheryl's Creation, I think it was. Somebody I saw did just X's for eyes. That's cute too, like they're sleeping. Or you can just do Kristen does the...
I go up in one side, go in the other, and then I go down a row and pull it down. It makes a little
sleepy eye.
Yeah.
Okay.
I do that mostly when I'm doing something for a baby cousin or baby nephew, so that way, because you don't want them to pull out safety eyes.
Right. Sewing all the pieces onto them. Kristen has several patterns that she's started now, not that she created, but that she's worked, where the pieces are sewn on. So, like sewn in, crocheted in.
Mm-hmm.
So you'll make the pieces, then you make the body, and as you make the body, you crochet them on. I haven't done that yet. You want to kind of explain how that works?
Yeah, so the first thing I did was an elf, and that's like the first thing ever that I did, and the creator did it. So you'd make both the legs and both the arms, and you'd snip them off and leave like kind of a decent tail, so you could hide it and weave it in, so that way it doesn't come apart. And then you'd start the body, and then you'd get so far up, and you would chain and attach to one of the legs, crochet around, like I think it was chain 1 or chain 2, then chain again and attach to the body, and then you go around to the other side and do the same. Then you'd crochet up the body and do the same to attach the arms. And I think that was really easy. And then you would like decrease for the head and then increase for the head too.
I need to try that. Then, again, about eyes, mouth. One of the mouths I like to do is where you do a straight line with the yarn, and then you come up from the bottom and go up over top of it and pull it down.
That's what I did for eyes.
And it'll make a V, and you can tie them off in the back and weave them in.
But I did for eyes. I do one row down, so it's gentle. It's not like a straight up and down V.
Yeah. And there's lots of tutorials for that too, but we're just giving suggestions, things you could look for, tutorials for to help you. Big holes. Okay, so we all know that amigurumi sometimes has holes in it. The way to avoid that, and I have to do this sometimes because I use a single strand yarn instead of the bulky yarn on some patterns that they do, is to drop down a hook and maybe 2 hooks. Like I'll drop down to an F or a G instead of an H or an I that I normally use. It will make your pattern smaller, but it won't have holes in it. If you want it to be bigger, you can use double-stranded worsted weight, or you can use a bulky yarn and use a bigger hook. I'm not familiar with using too much of the bulky yarn in crocheted animals. I've done it before when I used to make old soul crochet patterns, but I don't do that much anymore because it hurts my hands.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. And it hurts your hands. So the only thing I have for hurting hands is to take a break. You need to take a break. Like if you can only do a round and take a break. If it's something you really want to do and to learn to do, and that's what I have been not doing this week that I should have been doing when I'm working on stuff. I should have been taking breaks and I did not. So therefore I am now in pain and not able to crochet as much as I'd like to. So do as I say, not as I do, right? You need to take a break every 30 minutes at least when you're crocheting, no matter what you're crocheting. Do some hand exercises. Get up and move around and do those things that will make you feel better so that you're not in pain. Then also, when you do legs and arms or whatever, and they turn out 2 different sizes, and I tend to have the same problem. Like I will do one and then do the second one and then do the third one and the fourth one, and there'll be 4 different sizes. And a lot of times I think it's because I get the first one done and I'm in a hurry, and I personally have the problem that I may get tired of doing it the way they want to do it, so I do it my way, or I just go and count whatever to see how far, and I don't use my stitch marker and I guesstimate. You should always use your stitch marker. Bad on me. And you can't.
I do the same thing though.
It's just wanting to get it finished, right? And it's handmade. It's handcrafted. So unless it's noticeably unless you have a leg that's this size, and then you have, a leg that is like this size, and they're so totally different, whatever. I just kind of feel like it is what it is. But if it really bothers you, you could try what I've seen some people do is making 2 at a time. So if you have 2 crochet hooks the same size, you pull from one end of the yarn and then from the other end of the yarn together and work them both together. Or maybe you have 2 balls of the same and you just work from both of them and do 1 row in this one row in this one. Or even the same hook. I mean, you don't have to have 2 hooks because you don't have 4 hands, right? I don't know what I was thinking. So do a row on this one, a row on this one, a row on this one, a row on this one. And maybe that will help alleviate some of that. Let me go back and look some of the other things that I had thought about. Just a second. There are no-sew patterns for those who don't like to sew on pieces. And I've done some of those. This was a no-sew pattern. It's just a bunny. And all of this, well, the ears I think had to be tied on. But everything else, the feet and the tail are all worked in. Most of the time that's through a bobble stitch, a popcorn stitch, something like that gives you that stitch for the feet and arms and things like that. This was a no-sew. You'll see in a thing that we're getting ready to do. So this one was crocheted in.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So things like that. So you don't have to sew on those pieces or low sew. A lot of them say low sew. There's not that many pieces to sew on. Again, double stranded to make a bigger amigurumi, or if you want to do the bulky yarn, you can do that. Like I said, if your hands hurt, I wouldn't recommend that. Double stranded, it's still going to make it hurt, but if you take breaks, you know, probably not as bad. Okay, the other stuffing thing that I do came from Old Soul Crochet, which is where I use a pantyhose and stuff it, and I usually stuff anymore with scrap yarns, strands that I've cut off my other projects. I have a great big container of them that sits over here, and then when I need it, I just go in and pull it out and push it in, and they're real squishy, and that's what this is sewn with, so, or stuffed with, and I think it's better than polyfill, but that's just me. Yeah, use your stitch marker, use your row counter, go back and check over, and maybe tick off your lines as you're going so you don't skip over. That's the problem I had when I first started, that the lines looked so similar to me because of what you were doing, especially if it says row 4 through 10 single crochet in each stitch around. Maybe put a little tick mark over to the side every time you finish one, and make sure you're moving your stitch marker each time, and that way you don't get lost and mess up. But in general, I have found that when I do that kind of thing, if I make a mistake, it's pretty easy to fix the count on the next round. If you're missing a stitch, you add a stitch. If you, if you've got too many, you take away a stitch and decrease. And I've done that a lot rather than rip out the pattern. That's just me. If you're just starting and don't want to do that, that's fine too. Any other tips you have for Emmys?
No, I mean, sometimes I find it easier to use, instead of a stitch marker, I use a strand of yarn, because for me it's easier than unclipping and reclipping a stitch marker every time. And
you can move it back and forth up through the rounds, and that way you can easier to count your rounds too, in case you get messed up. I would say if you're just starting, start with a basic no-sew pattern and work with that, something easy without a lot of color changes. I would say, state my personal opinion, which doesn't count for anything, but my personal opinion from what I've done is to stay away from kits.
Yes.
I've made a few that I love, but if you are just starting, I would not do a kit. And I know that's what they're for. They're for beginners, but most of the time they have issues. Issues in the pattern writing, issues in that there's not enough yarn, issues in that the yarn is super tiny and the object super tiny and the hook super tiny. And if you're just starting to make an amigurumi, I would pick one that works up a little bigger, like this one, that goes 24 to 36 stitches, so that you can actually work out the pattern and see what it looks like in a bigger form before you start doing the little itty bitty things or things that are smaller. So that's our tips for amigurumi. We hope they help. And if you're an experienced person with amigurumi, it may be that there's nothing new here, and you may say, I didn't learn anything new. Maybe you have something to add. Let us know in the comments down below what your tips are for amigurumi. And don't forget to be kind, because
you don't know anybody else's journey.
Bye.
Bye.